think with a name like Jewel, you have to love jewelry. Jewel is my real name. I actually get asked that a lot. So I just thought I'd start there. Hi, this is Jewel, and this is Precious Metals with Marie Claire. I'm going to show you into the world of some of my jewelry. I think what makes jewelry special to me is two things. One, if you just like it because it's pretty, that's enough of a reason. Number two is when they take on personal significance. And so a lot of the pieces I'm choosing today are because they represent a time in my life. So the first piece of jewelry that I'm going to share with you is something that I wore during a significant time in my life. And I've kept it all these years. I honestly haven't even worn it since then, is what's kind of strange. But coming from Alaska, I wasn't used to getting all dressed up. And it made me uncomfortable and self-conscious. So I went in jeans and a vest, if I remember right, and this ivory my grandmother had given me, and tied it around my neck. And everybody else was super dressy and super, super fancy, and they all looked really beautiful. But I felt really authentic, and I felt really good. And this was basically the fanciest thing I even wore that night. For me, the significance of the roses was about allowing myself to continually bloom in life. I'd say my taste in jewelry is eclectic, just like the way I dress, just like my music. I like folk, pop, country, rock, and I'm that way when I dress too. It's kind of this amalgamation of things. A lot of the jewelry that I love isn't that expensive. It's pieces like I just showed you that just have a lot of emotional significance. But I also like fancy jewelry. And when I started making money, I really wanted to buy jewelry. But I didn't really give myself permission to do it because it just seemed like such an extravagant expense. My mom was my manager, and it didn't work out incredibly well. I remember she went shopping one day and came home with 2 really gorgeous diamond rings. 2 rings that I never would have paid for because they were so expensive. She said, I bought one for you and I bought one for me, and why don't you pick one? And so I picked one, and I remember looking at it thinking, what a waste of money. And also, kind of delighted because it was so extravagant and beautiful. It's definitely not something I probably would have purchased for myself on my own. It made me very happy. I would wear it. I would take it on tour even. I have a book called Never Broken where it really describes this relationship with my mom. But the short version is that in 2003, I realized I was broke after selling millions, 30 million records. And not only was I broke, but I was 3 million in debt. It was really awful and sad and scary. The last time I ever saw my mom was in a lawyer's office. I remember she looked at me and said, I just really look forward to being just your mom again. And I realized that was probably the last time I'd ever see her. It's definitely a big, sad story. And the one thing I have from my entire career is this ring. From that phase of wealth, from that phase of everything, was this ring my mom bought. Miner's cut diamond. It's enormous. And you know what? If she hadn't bought this and if she hadn't given it to me, this money would have been gone too. So at least I have this. I first started building my jewelry collection when I was young, like any girl does, collecting little earrings. I was raised really poor on a ranch in Alaska. Loved little things like jelly bracelets, if anybody remembers those. My dad made really interesting and unusual jewelry. I was able to collect found objects and make jewelry out of them at a young age. This is embarrassing, but one of my first little hustles was, this sounds so dumb, but here we go. I made moose poop jewelry. I lived in a tourist town called Homer, Alaska. And so you would take dry, dehydrated little moose pellets, and I would varnish them, and then I would string them together and make earrings. Google it, it's a thing. It wasn't just me. So I've collected a lot of jewelry traveling all over the world. One of my favorite pieces I've ever collected was by an artist in New Mexico. I absolutely fell in love with this piece of opal. It's Ethiopian opal. And I have this really visceral memory as a child. It's something I wrote in my book as well, of when I was really little, seeing all these colors swirling in my head. I've always had this image of all these colors swirling in my head and that they needed to come out. When I was living in my car, because I wouldn't have sex with my boss, when I was 18, instead of feeling sorry for myself, I started singing in this coffee shop, and I wrote my grandmother a letter, and it said, "Grandma, all these colors are swimming in my head and they have to come out. I think I'm gonna be famous." I was a homeless kid living in a car with no fan base. It's a very funny, weird letter to write. But this thing about all these colors in my head has always been with me. And so this ring just reminds me of everything that's sort of special and inherent and inside. As I mentioned, my dad makes jewelry. I grew up with him weaving baskets and making jewelry. He would make jewelry out of animal parts. You might be a redneck if you look at roadkill as an accessory. I grew up on an Alaskan homestead, and we used everything from the animal. So I started bringing my son up to Alaska to spend time with my dad and be part of that lifestyle and that culture, because I just think it's good for anybody, male or female, to be able to work with your hands and work with the land. And a bird hit a window one day, and it was very sad, and my son cried. My son asked my dad if they could honor and commemorate the bird in some way. And so my dad and him decided to make a necklace. My dad still lives off the land, actually. He's in a show called Alaska, The Last Frontier, if any of you have seen that on Discovery. And so my dad and my son made a necklace when my son turned 7. And it's a bear claw from a hunt that my dad did. It has the little bird's bones. And so my son made this necklace and gave it to me as a gift. I know this might be really strange to people from cities, but it's definitely not a piece I really wear, but I keep it in a chest of my son's special objects. There is so much jewelry that I didn't get a chance to show you that has so much personal meaning, like these earrings my dad made out of he was doing some exploring in Alaska and found some fossilized walrus ivory is the teeth. And he made me these beautiful earrings by polishing it down into these really thin slivers. And I wear these all the time. I think they're really beautiful. So I started this jewelry line called Songlines. Songlines is an Aboriginal term for a way to navigate through huge distances, across huge distances. And I think all of us are asked to migrate as humans. We really forget that we have to migrate. Migration is defined as going from somewhere that you don't thrive and going to somewhere where you will thrive. And we have to all do that, whether it's in our relationships or our jobs. We have to go from a place that no longer serves us to somewhere where we're going to thrive and do better. And so I wanted to create this jewelry line where every single piece has a really specific meaning. Like this turquoise ring, for instance, is called grounding. And every time I touch it and wear it, I think about being grounded and helping breathe through my anxiety. I wanted to share with you guys a brand new piece that we just designed. We make all of this here in Telluride, Colorado. It's me and my best friend, Christopher. So it's called Ascension. It means a lot to me. I've drawn this little design, this little bird, pretty much my whole life. And again, every time I touch it, I think about pushing past the limits, pushing past the amount of happiness or love that I thought I could achieve, and knowing that there's more than I could possibly have thought. I wanted to offer 20% off to all the Marie Claire audience. So if you go on the Songlines by Jewel website and use the code MarieClaire20, you'll get 20% off of anything there, and especially this little necklace. I hope you guys loved the tour of my jewelry. So thank you for joining me. It's very appreciated, and I will see you guys later.